Good morning, I'm Tonya Joy. I am with the Neighborhood Housing Initiatives Division within MISHDA, and I run several programs which we'll talk about today. So I'm primarily here to talk about workforce housing needs and how this is a critical and important activity in Michigan. So in the statewide housing plan, how many of you have actually seen the statewide housing plan yet? Or at least a draft of it? Okay, so that is something that you'll all want to look at hopefully in the future. But in the statewide housing plan, one of the objectives is to have 75,000 units created in the next 5 years. And within that, that includes the workforce housing component. So there's a really statewide need for this in both rural and urban areas. And I have several programs that are working on housing within Michigan. The one that's most tied to workforce housing is MISHDA MOD program. The MISHDA MOD program is modular housing through new construction in a manufacturing facility and then posted on site. And we provide up to $210,000 for that program to do the first home within your community. And then once you sell that home, we can recycle the dollars back to you. So I'm going to go through what MISHDA MOD is because it's really important that you can see one of the alternatives for workforce housing. We also have a pilot program called SHARP, which is Small Scale Housing Rental Program. We have 5 units in that program currently, and they're all throughout the state in rural areas. And this program is providing up to $400,000 to help developers to create the units up to, it's typically 8 units or less that they're doing for rental housing. So this is another critical need that we're hearing from employers throughout the state. We also have the NEP program because not only do we have an issue with new construction of units and availability, we also have an issue with the units that are in existence being aging and the housing stock not being adequate to attract workers to those areas. So we have a housing repair program. It's called the Neighborhood Enhancement Program. It's up to $7,500 of grant funding to be able to assist homeowners to improve their housing stock. Now, luckily, due to ARP funding, we have expanded that program, and it's called My Hope. It's on the back counter if you're interested in information, and that information for the people that are on the call today virtually, they can access that through our website. So the My Hope program is providing energy efficiency improvements to homes up to 300% federal poverty level and that are experiencing or have experienced a COVID financial hardship. And so that funding is up to $25,000 per unit. It can be used for not only single-family homeowners, it can also be used for rental units, up to 3. And this program is tied to occupied housing. There's a new program that's coming out. How many of you have heard of Missing Middle? So there's $50 million that has been appropriated for Missing Middle, and the Missing Middle program is going to be launched for public comment this week, hopefully on our website. And so I encourage all of you to go out and get access to either the mailing list, because I'll send it out to our mailing list, which is HID mailbox at michigan.gov. Or you can use MISHDA-MI-HOPE at michigan.gov. And we will put you on our mailing list so you can find out about all the new programs that are being launched. So MISHDA received $150 million. $50 million of it is tied to My Hope, which is for residential repair tied to energy efficiency. Another $50 million is tied to the Missing Middle program. And then the last $50 million is the Housing Community Development Fund. And that is still being structured. So I don't have a lot of information about those other 2 programs, but my program is actually out and is available right now for you to apply or to have any entities within your area apply. is open to all government entities and nonprofit 501Cs. So the deadline for application is August 15th, and hopefully all of you will be able to access that information. So Mishta's MOD's objective is to enhance opportunities for economic development. It promotes construction of modular or modified technology in primarily residential areas in both rural and urban communities. We have these fundings available, and this is going to be a new funding round in September of 2022. So there'll be another $2 million available, so we'll be able to do 9 more homes. So this is eligible to local units of government, nonprofits, or for-profits that are structured as limited dividend housing associations. The community needs to be at least 51% low and moderate income, and this is based on HUD's documents that they have. We also have 3 other alternatives to determine that, because this is a program that is available to up to 120% area median income. So we began this as a pilot in 2019, and it's been established as a permanent program, and we have a yearly allocation of $2 million. The goal is that we started this during COVID, so we have 17 houses done already, but the goal is that every year we'll do 10 houses, and then we'll recycle that dollars again, and we'll do 20 and 40 and 80 and so on. So this could be very powerful, as we just have to get it launched and off the ground, and hopefully COVID will be over soon. That would be great. And then this is structured as a repayable grant with the maximum award of $210,000. And the repayable grant can include site prep, deposits, delivery fees, and on-site installation. Land costs and developer fee are not included in the grant award, and we do encourage partnerships with the land banks, and if you do not have access to the land yourself. The leverage funds from the applicant is not required, so we can fully finance a home. We've done it 17 times. This is, we have increased the dollar amount. The original pilot was $196,000, but due to the market issues and the supply issues that we faced during COVID, we have increased it up to $210,000. You have 36 months to complete the home, and then you can sell the home up to $224,500. We're trying to make these affordable and attainable for families and households, and we believe $224,500 is the cap that we can do on before it goes to market rate. So we have designed all of our programs to encourage building partnerships and increase housing capacity at the local level. And I wanted to give you some examples of what these look like. So in Muskegon, this is a finished modular. This is how it comes in. It comes in on a flatbed truck, and then they just place it there. This is another example of one of our homes. We've completed homes in Beaverton, Dowagiac, and Kalamazoo. As you can see, they're different. We can do 1-story or 2-story. Throughout the state, we have been able to reach all the regions except for regions 7 and 9. So if you're in region 7 or 9, we're looking for you. And the little black dots show you where our houses are actually located right now. So in addition to Mishta Mod, we have 3D printed home pilot going on in Detroit. So we're hoping to have the first 3D printed home in Michigan this fall. And so there will be a groundbreaking anticipated in September. So our 3D home is going to be done by Citizen Robotics. The robot was made by 20 AM, and the model is Telikium. And this is what it's going to look like when it's done. And I'm going to turn it over now to Lori Mullins, and she's going to talk to you as well. Thank you for your time. Oh, and we'll have questions at the end.
Good morning. So I'm Lori Mullins, and I'm the Director of Community Development Incentives at the MEDC, and wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of our programs that are supporting housing also. And so I will run through this here. So just first I wanted to share that, MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, is the chief marketing and business attraction arm of the state. And we work on enabling long-term economic opportunities for Michiganders. So there's a lot of different things that the MEDC does. This is a slide that shows our mission, vision, guiding principles, and strategic focus areas. And most of the housing investment falls under the developing attractive places. This is a slide that sort of shows how it all fits together, that the places that we're working to develop are places where people want to live and want to invest and start businesses. And so the businesses need talent, the talent wants to be in an exciting, vibrant place, and the place needs business in order to thrive. And so that's just showing how it all comes together. And then there's some incentive programs that are specifically supporting different housing projects. The Community Revitalization Program, it's called CRP, has been around for since 2012. And brownfield tax increment financing and transformational brownfield plans are another set of tools that use tax increment financing. The Build My Communities program is brand new, and that's sort of a mini CRP or a stepping stone program with grants and loans for smaller scale redevelopment projects. And then the state housing tax credits just came back, and I'll talk just briefly about that as well. So the CRP program, the goal of that program is shown here on the slide. It's to attract talent through impactful placemaking and fostering redevelopment. We really look at supporting redevelopment on challenged sites, and it's a grant and loan program that's need-based. We do underwriting of the projects and confirm that there's a need, and we can do between 20 and 50% of the project's hard costs can be supported through a grant or loan through the CRP program. In small towns under 15,000 in population, we can go up to the 50% of hard costs. In every place else in the state, we can go up to 25%. And then the Michigan Strategic Fund Board can approve up to 3 projects per year anywhere in the state, up to 50% if they're for historic preservation. So got a lot of different examples of those that I can talk about a little bit, but the grants can be no more than 1.5 million, and together grants and loans can be no more than 10 million. So example projects would be, just yesterday, the Michigan Strategic Fund Board supported a project in Lansing. Actually, that was with Brownfield. It's the rehabilitation of a former bank building to convert that into housing. We have projects in the small town of Honor. There's a CRP project that is a new construction of an apartment building to support their housing needs. There's in Ypsilanti, there's a project that was supported with CRP that just recently received a historic preservation award that is the rehab of a building that was from the mid-1800s that was converted, brought back to usefulness and converted into housing and retail. So there's a lot of different examples. But I will move on. The Brownfield TIF, the goals of this program is to really to rehabilitate, bring back sites that have been used before. They can be contaminated. I think a lot of people think of brownfield sites as contaminated sites, and most of the time they are. But there's also the ability to do a brownfield plan for properties that are considered functionally obsolete, that just are not able to be used in the way that they were originally built and need to have reinvestment. There's also historic resources can be brownfields. So there's some different opportunities here that not everybody realizes are available. And EGLE, the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, approves reimbursement of tax increment for the environmental eligible activities, the site cleanup mainly, and MSF approves the non-environmental, which can include demo, lead and asbestos and mold abatement, and in core communities, it can include infrastructure and site preparation costs. So the tax increment revenues can be captured over 30 years to reimburse those costs and can be very helpful in moving those projects forward. And the transformation of brownfield plans, something that came about 5 years ago in 2017, but it was just recently amended, and it was set to sunset this year, but it was amended to extend for 5 more years. And this program has been simplified, so it's no longer requiring a third-party economic analysis, and it's just one of the items that was simplified is that it's also allowing in small towns with a population of less than 25,000 for the project to be only for housing. So just another example of the recognition of the housing needs out there and wanting to provide more tools for those. So the difference between transformational brownfield and regular brownfield is that transformational has a threshold for investment. It's supposed to be a larger project. It's also the eligible activities that can be reimbursed are more than those that I mentioned for traditional. It's really all of the hard costs for the construction of the property can be reimbursed. It's usually what limits it is the tax increment that's generated by the new development. So, you know, your brownfield reimbursement is based on that increment, the difference between the base taxes and the taxes on the new development. And so that amount of tax increment is what generally limits the transformational reimbursement. The Build My Communities program, this is the brand new one that I mentioned, and I need to get my notes on this one because, like I said, it's brand new. So this one is, we have $5 million to spend on this. It's what I call the mini CRP because it's really intended for smaller projects that are up to 250,000 in size. So it's so the maximum award is equal to 50% of the eligible costs, or $250,000. And the total project size is, let me see, is the 2.5 million. So, so it's the smaller projects. It's the limit on the award size is smaller, but the beauty of it is that it's sort of a simpler process, and you can go up to 50% on projects anywhere in the state. And we're generally looking at for projects that are near a downtown. We're looking to support emerging developers, you know, new developers who are looking to do something in their community. Maybe they don't have the experience or the capital that some other developers have, and so there's more flexibility on the amount of equity that they're putting in and some of the other components that we're more strict with the CRP program on. So this one just launched, and there's information on our website at myplace.org. And then the State Historic Preservation Program, this is exciting because the state tax credits went away in 2011. They sunset at that point, and just came back this year. We only have $5 million for this program, which by comparison to other states, Ohio just increased their cap on their state historic tax credits to $120 million. So there's quite a difference, and we actually, when we opened the applications for this, then we had to close the applications in the same day because we had so many applications that it was, we were, you know, way over. So we will have a new allocation next year and be looking at opening another round of applications in January of 2023. But those are, we're looking at those being focused on the residential properties since we have so many commercial applications still in the queue. And with that, I guess we're ready to do some discussion items. Do you want to do any questions on what we've presented first? Okay. All right, so if you have any questions for Tonya or I on what we presented, then this is the time for that. And then Tanya's going to lead a discussion of these questions that are on the screen after that. But any questions before we move on?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looks like there's just a whole host of different programs that can help redevelop communities. And so from a county perspective, do you have someone within MEDC or within MISTA that would be a point person for them to contact and say, hey, this is the area I'm most concerned with? Or do you recommend they work with the individual municipalities and just kind of push them into trying to start the process?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We have community development managers embedded throughout the state in the different regions, the 10 different regions of the state, the prosperity regions. And they are the people that you should be in contact with to learn more. They're able to come out and meet with you and talk through different opportunities in your county. And yeah, we're very willing to meet with any county representatives about redevelopment opportunities that you may have. And that information is also on the myplace.org. There's a map that shows the 10 regions and all of the contact information for those managers.
Thank you.
Okay, so for MISTA, I recommend that you reach out to me directly, and then I can put you in touch with the appropriate person at MISTA. So my email is joyt@michigan.gov, and my direct phone number is 517-335-4337. So I just want to know, I've been with the state for 25 years, and I have not run into any of you, so I am in the right place because the message is going to get to the right people today. So thank you for your time. Oh, are there any more questions?
I've got a question here in the back for both of you. When you're interacting with the various developers for housing, whether it's single family or multi-unit, what do they tell you is the number one barrier or the number one challenge they face in identifying a location, getting permitted, and quickly constructing and opening that housing?
I can tell you what I hear is financing. They all need to have additional help and assistance in actually making these homes be created. So that's what I'm seeing, especially at the community level. It's risk-based, so there isn't comps out there, or there isn't things in place for capacity building at the local level to the extent that's needed. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just add that that the other piece is just knowing what the community wants and where they want the building to happen, because especially right now where we're seeing these increases in construction costs happening so quickly, and the increases in interest rates too, it's having some certainty as they're getting into projects and knowing that it's going to be something that's going to be supported locally and isn't going to be held up by various local approvals is something that we hear too. So just having that be part of like a local housing plan, or having something that shows that there's support for this type of development.
As a follow-up question to that, are there any programs established or restrictions on local assistance for those developers to help meet some of these match requirements?
Here we go.
That's what the missing middle program is going to be, gap financing. So that program is going to be very powerful in all of your counties to facilitate the actual implementation of projects. So I think missing middle is going to be a great opportunity.
So I got a quick question. On the housing opportunities, I see where modular homes are now acceptable to be putting up. How is that going? I know people that think of modular homes thinks of mobile home parks, but the modular homes of today are built just as well as a regular house. What did it take for MEDC to finally recognize that that's a affordable option?
Well, MEDC is usually focused on attached housing, and so we're looking more at the apartments and townhouses in most cases, so not modular, but there is a couple of examples of apartment buildings that were actually, built with modular, the pieces and parts were built off-site in factories and brought in as a modular type of construction. Most of the modular single-family homes are being supported by MISTA.
So we're looking at all alternatives to stick-built housing because stick-built housing takes so long and is very expensive. So we're looking at a modular as an alternative. And changing the perception of what modular is, that's why I put it up on the screen, because people do envision the mobile home parks as modular. And technology's gone a long way. The actual fact is that a modular construction is built in a contained environment, and it can be done year-round. And in Michigan's climate, that's important. So we can produce additional units year-round, and is also built in a controlled environment where all of the measurements and everything are very precise. So when they get done, there's less waste on those units. So that's important to MISTA as well. So it took 4 years to convince MISTA that modular was something that they should explore. But they're all on board now, so we're very thankful for that. But it is a perception, and it's a perception locally that has to be changed as well.
William Miller, Oakland County, Michigan. So I have a nonprofit looking to do two different things in my community. To do affordable housing, they're working on building affordable housing, and to build a training center for the community and surrounding communities to train on whatever the interest is they put in there. So could they apply separately, or since it's the same nonprofit, would it be count as just one?
Which program are you referencing?
I'm not sure the program that would work for them.
Is it the same site?
It's like one's across the street from the other, so it's not on the same property.
They're close, yeah.
Yeah.
If they're reasonably adjacent and being constructed at the same time as part of the same strategy of investment, then it could be one application for the MEDC's programs.
Okay. I just want to make sure they can, if they do apply, they can maximize, to get this project done sooner than later.
Sure, yeah, and, I think the way that we look at things is that both of those investments would support each other.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would be, that makes perfect sense. It's great.
All right. And I just have one more question. So this is something we're looking into in my county, is with the brownfield. Is there any, and I don't know if you know this, is there any way that a county can add language to the brownfield to make sure that you're getting qualified work by, like qualified contractors? So when the contractors are done, it's whoever buys it or who's doing it doesn't have to go back and fix it?
Yeah, so usually that would be part of your local approval process, and it could be built into, you could have a development agreement as part of the brownfield incentive, or some sort of threshold that they have to use a qualified contractor and a vetting process for that, but that would be it would be built into your approval process. And then if it's part of the reimbursement agreement that's in place for every brownfield plan, then in the future, you could also have some opportunity to go back to that developer if the contractor didn't, if something wasn't done right, then you might have some way to go back and, potentially withhold some reimbursement or something if there's good rationale.
Okay, so if there isn't any other questions for us. Oh, there is.
Can't get away that easy. On the screen, there's the two questions, the second and third bullet may be combined, and maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. Are you finding with the entities that you're working with, are they using ARPA funds to conduct, market studies to then develop a strategic plan for housing that, may include workforce housing needs, but, I don't know, there's a big difference between workforce housing needs and just housing needs. Are you seeing that? And maybe somebody else could even answer that question. What I'm really looking at is, what category of the ARPA funding would be allowed to be used for those kinds of studies to then develop a plan that we would implement.
Yeah, that's why these questions are up here, because we actually don't know. We know that you received ARP funds, but we don't know how you're using them. And so we want to see how you're tying them to workforce housing, because that's something that we know there's additional dollars coming, and we want to see if there's going to be a need for these things, because as we're writing our next programs, we want to make sure that we're meeting your needs as well. So there's so many categories for ARP. I can't really answer whether or not which one it would be in, but I know by looking at it that one of those would fit.
Oh, okay.
So we have a consultant, so if you want to send me an email, I can ask him which code it would be.
Great. Thank you.
So we're gonna, if you have no other questions for us on our programs, we're going to ask you a few questions. The first one is, have any of your agencies formally quantified the need for workforce housing in your area? And what metrics have you utilized to quantify that?
Online, you can participate as well, so.
So the data that we have that's in the statewide housing plan is from 2019. So I'm just looking for alternatives to that data. So if any of you have any, you can send it to me by email, or you can write it on the paper and just hand it to me at the end.
I guess,
Yeah.
just before we move on, thanks. Does everybody agree that housing is a need? I mean, are you hearing this in your counties, that this is a big issue for your employers and for community members? Okay. Yeah, so I think what we're trying to get at with some of these questions is to hear a little bit from you about what you're hearing so that we can use that feedback, so.
All right, we got a few cans back here.
I guess this is similar to the last question, but we've got, in our area, we've got quite a few people from, let's say out of the country that are working in some of our, mainly foundry type applications. We got aluminum foundries and that kind of thing in the county. But these people don't have any place to live, and they don't have many resources, and they work really hard, and they're definitely an asset to our businesses, but we have to find a way to house them somewhere. And I mean, we're really struggling, and I mean, anything you can do to just give us some direction, we'd be more than happy to follow that up.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful.
Yes, this is from online, Marlene Bremer up in the UP. Here's one of your funner acronyms, WUPTER, which is the Western Upper Peninsula Planning and Development Region, I think. She says they have a housing strategies and workforce research group going right now, and they are trying to tie into the programs mentioned here this morning. So that's Western UP Planning and Development Region. And while I'm on the phone, Al, we see you online with your hand up. We need you to pose your question in the Q&A format.
Any other comments on that first question from anyone? All right.
So our second question is, are you dedicating any of your county ARP and or other funding specifically to address workforce housing needs in your area? Okay, so I'm not seeing any, so that's why we're here, is we would like you to really think about the needs within your county and whether or not workforce housing should be prioritized.
Yeah, at the association too, we are tracking as much as we can what folks have been doing with ARP funds, and I don't think we've seen any from anything that we've gotten from any of our members. Now, NACO, that could be a different story. We can look at their database as well, but they may have some strategies out there too.
Just going to jump in here and say, the state allocated 100 million of their ARP funds for the RAP program, which is revitalization and placemaking. It was one of the first allocations of the ARP funds, and so those applications have already come in and are being reviewed right now. But there are several that are workforce housing related and identifying the housing needs in different communities. So we're still hoping to get some supplemental funds to do another round of the revitalization and placemaking, but right now the application window is closed. But I just did want to share that several of the applications are housing related.
And counties were eligible for those?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, are you utilizing organized market studies as a strategy for addressing workforce housing in your county? So do any of you have a recent market study newer than 2019? Okay. All right. Do you want to say that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So the next one is, have you reviewed the statewide housing plan and identified a method to address workforce housing in your area tied to the plan? So I had asked you if you had seen it, and nobody raised their hand, so we can probably move past this question. But I'm going to, if you send me to put on our mailing list, I would like to send you a copy of that plan for your reference.
And
Are
Tonya,
any of you interested in that?
Tonya will send you an email list for everybody participating today, so you have access to that. We have a comment from online from Al Vanderberg, who is the administrator in Kent County. Al mentions that the ALICE data, which comes through United Way, I believe, the ALICE data is useful. Asset limited income, constrained employed, data regularly updated and shows Kent County has a deficit of 17,000 units of workforce housing. We are organizing efforts through Housing Kent, which I presume is probably a multi-governmental entity.
Okay, thank you very much. And then our last question is, do you have any successful employer-assisted housing programs that you can tell us about? Or are you collaborating with an employer to create workforce housing within your county? So I just want to give you an example of how this can work. So we have a Mishta Mod project that was proposed in Iosco County. So we met with an employer there, Kalita Air. Their staff was able to talk to their foundation and put a substantial amount of money towards workforce housing. So some of these employers are ready to invest. They just are looking for somebody to come to them with a plan and a project. So this is something where you might want to reach out to your employers and see if they have foundations or they have other funding that they would like to contribute because they want to alleviate the workforce housing issue within their communities. Because the leveraging is very powerful when you're in a competitive program statewide.
So was the county involved in those discussions at all up in Iosco?
The county was not there at the meetings, but the township was.
Okay, thanks.
And I would like to see the counties to get involved more in some of the programs that are happening at the local level. I know that you're probably stretched from staffing perspective, but I think it'd be very beneficial to be a part of those discussions and planning.
Okay, another online comment. Marlene Bremer again up in Ontonagon County. They have an employer, Trident, that would like the county to have housing available so Trident can add about 100 employees. This is a dire need that is not being addressed. What would your advice be to Marlene and her colleagues up in Ontonagon about, how do they handle a situation like that?
Yeah, so Jennifer Tucker is our regional representative up there, and I think that, every project has all sorts of details, and And so I would recommend reaching out to Jennifer and talking through what the specific challenges are that are keeping that project from moving forward, or, what stage it's at and what type of assistance could be provided.
I have a question or comment, more of a question. So when you're looking at these, when you're looking at like the IASCO situation and that employer, are you finding that the entity that's in charge with zoning is driving that conversation with the employer, or is it any entity? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I wish that they were involved because they would have better site selection. That project had an issue with contamination on the site. So I would like the zoning person to be there to help when they're actually starting projects, because it would be important for them to be at the table. But in this case, they were not. But I'm learning as I go along.
Thanks.
So when the MEDC is recruiting corporations to come to Michigan, is this part of your draw to them, is to talk about that issue of workforce housing? Because I've heard every company that wants to move, that's their number one concern.
It's true, yeah. This is increasingly part of that conversation. It is one of the chicken and egg types of things. It's like, you have an employer coming in, and are you going to build the housing before they come, or after, and how do you do it in such a way that it's going to align with the timing needs for those employees, so that it's challenging to address, but it's definitely part of the conversation in almost every project right now, every investment by different employers.
Are any of these monies that are coming in, are they for H-2 workers at all, or is that strictly a different program for housing?
Yeah, I think it's a different program. Our program isn't restricted in that way. It's for any workforce. We focus mostly on attainable housing, which is aligned with the local workforce average salaries. So not as specific as that.
So how do we, as a county, make sure housing's affordable? Because we've seen like where they say they're going low income, and all of a sudden, a few years later, they know they can make money, and all of a sudden, and now the housing's more expensive, so workers can't afford it.
Right. I think that one of the keys is zoning. There are a lot of communities that have zoning set up for subdivisions, but they don't have much that's for new apartments, or even in subdivisions, and you can make zoning changes to allow for accessory units, or, the apartment over the garage type of thing, so that you wind up having, if you have a zoning code that allows for a wide range of housing types, and make sure that that there's good places to build. It's not, it's the affordable housing, going back to the Alice comment that was made, a lot about affordability is the cost of the units, but it's also about access to other services. So somebody who needs affordable housing might not have as much money for transportation, so if they're close to where the jobs are, and close to where the services are, and close to daycare and all those types of things, then that can really impact the affordability of those units too. So just kind of thinking about it through the zoning process would be my recommendation.
Right. We've got another online comment. This is from Jeff Dantz up in Manistee County. Is MEDC or MISTA doing anything to simplify the process of any grant application?
That was any grant application? Yes, actually, MEDC went through a process of looking at the brownfield requirements just recently, and sort of changed the number of things that are required up front, so that you can submit less information and get an answer back as far as whether or not this is a project that we would support, with less time and investment into that initial application process. And we're looking at doing similar things with the CRP program as well, simplifying what's required to be submitted upfront so that you get a quicker answer as to whether or not it's supported. We still have to go through all of the due diligence and require a lot of information, so the applications probably won't be what people consider simple in the end, but that's because we have to have all that documentation to make sure that the project is qualified and will withstand an audit and all of those things. But we're trying to get it so that there's a simpler upfront process, so you know at least if you're in the door and if that project is something that we can support.
Yeah, and just a quick comment, at the association level, we do employ staff that can help with specifically brownfield grants, anywhere in the process. So whether it's application, tracking, ending, whatever, if you do want to take advantage of those resources, please reach out to any one of us. If you're looking at any specifically brownfields, let us know. And we're also looking at expanding that grant assistance program to other grants, especially when you start looking at some of these infrastructure grants that are going to be available soon and later this year. So stay tuned on that part of it.
To follow up on that grant comment, I was speaking to a commissioner from Northwest Michigan just last night, talking about all of the different dollars that are out there. I mean, it's an unprecedented amount of money in the state of Michigan right now that is available in grant dollars for a whole host of different projects. And so really paying attention to what those are, or having, someone available to help you research that is going to be extremely important.
Yeah, I just want to put a plug in for the My Hope program, which is the $30 million from ARP. We have simplified the application down to 25 questions and 9 attachments. It's all electronic, and so we have tried to streamline it as much as possible so that all the rural communities can apply. And 30% of the funding has been reserved for rural areas only, and applications will be reviewed in 2 components, urban and rural. They will not be competing against each other. So we are trying to be mindful of that.